Oh, hey, I sold my soul to Nintendo. Now I live here. But they gave me this.
Buy Nintendo Switch 2 welcome tour. Buy Nintendo Switch 2 welcome
Yeah, that
tour.
happens
Buy
sometimes.
Nintendo Switch 2 welcome tour.
At the time of this recording, the Nintendo Switch 2 has been out for just over a week. How it does long term, how it's looked back on, is yet to be seen. In this video, I wanted to talk about my experiences with these early days of the console, from the pre-launch buzz to day one, to some first impressions of the console, its accessories, and some games. But first, a word from our sponsor. This video is sponsored by no one! By me! I bought this with my own money. This thing is a hot topic online, so I just wanted to be clear that no one has paid me to say good and / or bad things about the console. Okay. Moving on. The Nintendo Switch 2 was officially announced on January 16th, 2025 and released on June 5th, 2025. I picked mine up on day one, opting for the Mario Kart World bundle. My initial thought was to get the console on its own and a physical copy of World, but you know how that went. I pre-ordered the console, some games, some accessories, and then sat and twiddled my thumbs until the fated day arrived. One thing that I've found over the years is that it's very easy for me to get swept up in the hype of a new Nintendo system. The first one I was conscious for was the original 3DS, and man, the night before I got that system, I could not sleep. Same goes for the Wii U, and double same goes for the original Nintendo Switch. The first Switch was both the first console that I got on day one, as well as the first console that I bought with my own money. Previous systems, I was too young to, have a job, earn money, provide value to shareholders, the whole 9 yards. So the Switch kind of represented a turning point for me, much like it did for Nintendo. Hot on the heels of their runaway success, the Wii U famously selling at least 8 units, the Switch promised to do something that no other system had done on the scale that it did before it. Combine the power of a dedicated home console with the convenience and portability of a handheld. And, well, here we are 8 years later, and it's one of the best-selling consoles of all time, behind only the PS2 and Nintendo DS. Sony has found 8 million more PS2 sales, behind only the Nintendo DS and PS2. In the lead up to the original Switch's launch, I was fiending for information from wherever I could get it. Every day, I was watching trailers, hands-on videos, gameplay reveals, a shitload of Nintendo Minute with Kit and Krista, until the day finally arrived. I got the console, the Pro Controller, and The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and I did not put it down for weeks. Everywhere I went, every second of free time I had, I was on this thing. And then my launch Switch had a swollen battery, the Pro Controller got drift, but I still had Breath of the Wild. Over the years, Nintendo would show no signs of stopping, putting out game after game after game. The console, along with its Lite and OLED revisions, sold like hotcakes, introducing more and more people the world over to Nintendo. Not just your Marios and your Zeldas, but franchises like Xenoblade, Fire Emblem, Pikmin, and more were probably given a chance to shine on the platform. Of course, it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows, as third-party devs, critics, and skeptics would often criticize the console's lack of power compared to its PlayStation or Xbox counterparts, with a lot of multi-platform games being either the objective worst way to experience a game or just skipping the platform altogether. Even Nintendo fans couldn't look past its glaring lack of power in the later stages of the console's life, with even first-party games feeling like a compromised experience, and Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. For years, people were asking for a more powerful Switch. Not necessarily a whole new console, but a mid-gen refresh like the PS4 Pro. And while we got revisions in the Lite and the OLED model, they still had the same bits under the hood. Sooner or later though, rumors began to spread of a secret new device being worked on by Nintendo. It had a few working titles: the Nintendo Switch Pro, the Super Nintendo Switch, and the Nintendo Switch 2. This thing was one of the worst kept secrets in the gaming industry. It had leaked out, people were making accessories for it before the thing was even unveiled, and in January of 2025, Nintendo decided to show their hand and reveal what they'd been working on behind closed doors. Okay. Yeah, it was exactly what we'd asked for, the Switch, but better. A bigger screen, bigger Joy-Con, and that was it. This trailer, while not underwhelming, left me, whelmed, I guess. They did tease a new Mario Kart though, which was cool. And then a couple months later, in the Switch 2's big showcase direct, we learned a lot of new info, like the fact that it could do 4K HDR up to 120 FPS, which took me by surprise, honestly. We got info about the launch date, some of the launch titles, more about that new Mario Kart, as well as some wild and out there things that I don't think many expected, like confirmation that Deltarune and Silksong were both real and coming to the platform this year. And like the proud Nintendo shill that I am, I got myself a pre-order on that bad boy the second I could. And from there, I played the waiting game. I'm no stranger to it, I'm no stranger to waiting for things, but the lead up to launch felt different. I don't know. For starters, there were no review units of the console sent out to people. There were no early impressions outside of the ones from within the controlled environment of the Switch 2 experience by Nintendo. But, you know, I still ate it up. I watched a bunch of videos from people like Beat 'em Up, Scott the Woz, Kit and Krista about their thoughts and feelings regarding the console and its launch. And sure enough, after what felt like 2 months, the fated day arrived. The Nintendo Switch 2 officially released on June 5th, 2025. I got my console from EB Games, shout out to Will here for being the first guy in line at the store I got mine from, and I picked up some games and accessories from JB Hi-Fi a few stores down. Launch day was kind of a blur for me between making a video, transferring all my stuff over, and doing a bunch of setup, but in the last week, every second of free time I've had has been spent messing around with this console, testing things, playing things, and just like using it. And here are my impressions so far. Firstly, the console itself. This thing feels good. To use it, to hold, it feels premium in a way the previous Switch didn't. It's a mix of the bigger footprint, the better materials, the much better feeling joysticks, and also the upgrades under the hood. The magnetic attachment of the Joy-Con 2 is kind of really addicting to just fidget with and feels way better and more secure than the sliding of the original console. I'm not a hardware expert, I can't really talk about the ergonomics or anything like that in too much detail, but I did pick up this crystal case that gives the Joy-Con 2 a bit of extra grip. I'm not sold on it, honestly. It could be the material or the molding of this specific case, but honestly, this feels great without any sort of case or grip. Even the Joy-Con grip feels really, really solid compared to the original. Because of the size of the Switch 1, the original Joy-Con grip always felt cramped and uncomfortable to use, and when talking to friends, I'd always recommend they pick up a Pro controller to go along with the system if they were ever going to use a dock, but honestly, you're not going to have a bad time if all you've got is the included grip with your Switch 2. But speaking of the Pro controller, I don't know what dark magic they put into this thing. It is so good. The joysticks are phenomenal. I gotta give Nintendo credit where it's due. This is easily one of their best controllers ever. Build quality, ease of use, button feel, it's all there, it's all great. The big new thing for this controller, and also I suppose the Joy-Con charging grip if you pick up one of those, is the addition of back buttons, GL and GR. We've seen back buttons on other systems and controllers like the Xbox Elite, DualSense Edge, and the Steam controller and Steam Deck, where you can remap these back buttons to other functions of the controller or system, but no one has ever integrated it so smoothly into the experience like Nintendo has. By holding the home button in any game, you can quickly remap these buttons in seconds. A few things I've found it useful for is mapping a button to sprint in Zelda, mapping a button to accelerate in Mario Kart, and mapping jump to the back buttons in Cyberpunk and Fortnite. The addition of the back buttons, as well as the across-the-board quality upgrades compared to the original Pro controller, has easily skyrocketed it to one of my favorite controllers ever. Also quickly, in that very same menu, you can easily connect to Bluetooth headphones, and it's such a wonderful quality of life addition. The NSO GameCube controller is also a treat. It feels great to use. It's a GameCube controller. If you've used one before, it's the same, but it's wireless now, and it also has a gyroscope for reasons. I also picked up a case for the system, the official one. It's a case, it holds the Switch. What? Yeah, it's fine, no issues here. Down the line, I'll probably pick up something like a TomTalk. I've got one of those for my Steam Deck and I love it. The only real complaint I have with the official case is I feel like they could have probably fit more game card slots in here without much issue. Only holding 6 games kinda sucks if you have a whole collection of stuff from the previous Switch. You can alleviate this kinda by double stacking your cartridges in the case, but you know, it's entirely a first world problem, so I'm not too up in arms about it. But hey, let's talk about those games and how they stack up. The first thing I played on the Switch 2 was the pack-in, was the included. Wait, this costs money?
Buy Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour. Buy Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour. Buy Nintendo
Okay,
Switch 2
fine.
Welcome.
The first thing I played on the Switch 2 was the game that should have been a free pack-in included title, Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour. It should have been free. Welcome Tour is more or less an interactive manual that should have been included with the system. It's kind of cute. The demos and minigames are there to get you acquainted with the console's new features. You can learn about the ins and outs of your new system and do quizzes to solidify your knowledge, and generally it's a pretty decent introduction / welcome tour to the Nintendo Switch 2. It should have been included. Kids aren't going to be interested in this, and the only people that will actively go out of their way to pay money for a product titled Welcome Tour are people that would have probably gone out of their way to learn this information online regardless. I don't know, it just feels weird. When the Wii had Wii Sports and the Wii U had Nintendo Land, and hell, even recently with the PS5 having Astro's Playroom, this being a paid title is just a Strange decision. But anyway, let's talk some other games. Outside of Mario Kart, I picked up 3 physicals on launch: Cyberpunk 2077, Sonic X Shadow Generations, and Bravely Default Flying Fairy HD Remaster. Sonic and Bravely Default are on what's known as game keycards, which is another hot issue online. Rather than having the whole game on the cartridge minus, updates and DLC and whatnot, instead these games act as keys that allow you to play a digital copy of the game that you download from Nintendo eShop. PlayStation and Xbox have been doing this for years with their Blu-ray discs, but this is the first time we've seen Nintendo do it. I don't know, man. I think it was bound to happen sooner or later. Either that, or they were just gonna do away with physical altogether and give you code-in-a-box style games that we started to see more and more of towards the end of the Switch 1 era. I think having the full game on the cartridge is obviously the best solution, but with the ballooning cost of hardware, storage, and game development year after year, this is at least a stopgap solution that is annoying yet tolerable for some people, but it also really screws over other people. It's not the best, it's not ideal, and it remains to be seen if the backlash online will help stir discussion and change. It's too early to tell at this stage. Anyway, the games themselves. I never played Bravely Default on the 3DS, but it was always on my list, and this HD remaster seemed as great an opportunity as ever to try it out and give it a red-hot go. I've only played the first hour or so, but I like the system of Brave and Default turns, and the story has enough of a hook to keep me wanting to come back to it when I get the chance. It runs well, it looks as good as a 3DS remaster probably could without a complete ground-up remake, and yeah, I'm a sucker for RPGs, so I'm looking forward to spending more time with this. Sonic X Shadow Generations, on the other hand, I'm really mixed on, and that hurts to say, honestly. Not the game. The game is phenomenal. I bought it day one on PC and I've played it to death. I'm just talking about this specific version on the Switch 2. The first half of the game, the remastered Sonic Generations, is great. It runs at a constant 60 frames per second, a nice high resolution. It's Sonic Generations. Not much more to say there. It's one of my favorite games of all time, and yeah. Where I start to get disappointed though is the Switch 2 version of Shadow Generations. You can choose between 2 visual modes: Quality, which targets better visual fidelity at a frame rate of 30 frames per second, and Performance, which cuts back the graphics in order to deliver smooth 60 FPS gameplay. The problem is, both of these modes feel like a compromise. The game genuinely looks great in Quality mode, but feels so overwhelmingly sluggish at the lower frame rate, and on the other end of the spectrum, it feels great in Performance mode, but it's so disappointingly low res that it feels like they took the Switch 1 version of the game and just uncapped the frame rate. This is primarily an issue when the Switch 2 is docked. In handheld, on the smaller screen, you can play in Performance mode and it looks and feels great. And Cyberpunk? What the f? I have no idea what wizardry went into this port, but the Switch 2 version of Cyberpunk is incredible. Not just as a game, but as a technical marvel. Obviously, it's not going to look as clean or as smooth as the PC or the PS5, but the fact that this game looks and performs as good as it does on a device smaller than a Steam Deck and also outperforms that very same Steam Deck is wild. Genuinely. Cyberpunk is an incredible game. One issue I did have was trying to load my PC save. The game's inbuilt cloud saves kept crashing for me, so I started a new run because I was going to anyway, and since then, it's been wonderful. Playing in either performance or quality mode, you're gonna have a great time with it. The gyro aiming it adds to this version as well feels really good. The motion controls with the Joy-Con, like flicking your wrist to reload, feel way too gimmicky for me, but I'm sure someone will like it. And the mouse controls? I don't know. I've tried mouse controls in 4 games so far: Welcome Tour, Cyberpunk, Fortnite, and Deltarune. Deltarune spoilers in a sec, also kinda. I don't know, man. It feels a little gimmicky. Maybe it's because I don't have this set up on a desk. I'm just using the Joy-Con on the couch, but while the actual act of using it as a mouse sensor is really cool and feels great, the issues start to arise when games utilize the buttons on the very same controller that you're using as a mouse. It doesn't feel as ergonomic or revolutionary when you're trying to put your hand in an awkward position to click in the right stick to crouch. The best use I've seen of the mechanics so far has been in a completely optional fight in Deltarune. After beating Chapter 4, you can play a side mode that only on Nintendo Switch 2 uses both Joy-Con 2 controllers in mouse mode. Using 2 mice at once is a little disorienting at first, but as of right now, this is probably the best showcase of the controls and what you can do with them. I've also experimented with a few of my older games that both have and haven't received updates / Switch 2 editions. Games that don't have any extra bells and whistles on the Switch 2 are hit or miss personally. Like, outside of a consistent frame rate and dynamic resolution, you're stuck with whatever limitations the devs set for the original Switch 1 version of the game. For example, Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition looks great. It's stuck at 30 FPS, but the game sticks to the highest its dynamic resolution scaling can go. The other Xenoblade games, however, have a lower max resolution, leading to it running well, but looking kind of blurry. But games that have received updates for the Switch 2, oh my god, it is night and day. The Zeldas are phenomenal with 4K support, 60 FPS, HDR, all the buzzwords you can imagine. I'm so totally going to be playing these through again from scratch. The biggest one for me, however, is Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. The Switch 2 update for these games took them from being, to put it lightly, to one of the best Pokemon games of the modern titles. 4K, 60 FPS, and a much bigger limit on how many Pokemon can be on screen at once makes these games finally feel like they're achieving the original visions for the titles. Mass Outbreaks actually feel like mass outbreaks, and I found a shiny Porygon 2 while I was recording this. What? Okay, let's talk about Mario Kart. Mario Kart World is obviously the big ticket launch title of this console. I wouldn't say I've played enough yet to form a solid opinion on the game, but in the time I've spent with it, I've completed all the cups of the Grand Prix, played a few knockout tours, done a bit of free roam, and even played online for a hot second with the Switch's new game chat feature.
Oh, no way.
Yo, what's up?
That is Trey the William.
Yeah, it is. Oh my goodness.
It's fun. I don't know if it'll top Mario Kart 8 Deluxe for me. I think it's much too early to call that, but I probably shot myself in the foot a little bit by binging a good amount of 8 Deluxe in the final couple weeks leading up to the console's launch. Whoops! There are some things I really dig about this game, like the potential the new movement system brings, the rock-solid performance, the incredible soundtrack, but I'm also still warming up to some other things, like the free roam feels sort of tacked on and empty, the character select menu with the costumes taking up slots feels weird and bloated, the new way of doing Grand Prix races by driving to the course and then only doing one lap doesn't really gel with me, and it doesn't feel as polished of a package as 8 Deluxe did. Granted, I know Mario Kart 8 had 11 years of updates and new content, so I'm sure that after some time, I'll warm up much more to Mario Kart World. Each time I play it, I find myself liking it more and more, and I have no doubt that like a few weeks from now, I'll be gushing about it. And that's kind of my early thoughts on the Nintendo Switch 2. A bunch of good things, a bunch of things that could use some work, but overall, I love this little thing. It's exactly what I wanted, a bigger, better Nintendo Switch. And the people agree with it selling like 3.5 million units in its first few days. The lead up to launch day, the launch itself, and these early days of the console have genuinely been so much fun to be a part of, and I can't wait to keep using it as part of my daily life. The discussion around it is constantly changing and evolving, so I still think it's too early to tell how it's going to do long term, but it'll be interesting to look back on this in a few years and see what's changed. Like, will there ever be more than 2 themes? One thing I haven't seen though is people confirming that the kart still tastes bad like the original Switch one. Oh.